Good afternoon. It's Tom Ginn and G Force, a special edition Wednesday. I'm extremely excited about introducing my guest, but we'll be right back. Tom Ginn, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. You know, G-Force, I established this was my very first live streaming program well over 2 years ago. My background in coaching led me to create a program, and I have to always give thanks. And this is sort of how this whole circle has come about. But to Ken Walls, I always like to plant that seed and say thanks, Ken. It's your teaching how to do live streaming. It's made a big difference in my life. So I'm grateful for that because that just opens up avenues. I think gratitude opens up the gateways to higher spiritual awakening, all the way to love. So gratitude is a very powerful principle I apply in my life. I teach it out there and I try to walk the life of gratitude. And I think today, the guest that we're having in his story exemplifies what gratitude does, that it leads to a higher calling in life. So without any further ado, this is somebody I've come to know over the last couple of years in the Grow Live Academy and the circle of people that Ken has. And I've interviewed this guest in the past in my earlier days. So I probably didn't do the interview a whole lot of justice. But today I'm bringing back in Doug Wing, the author of this book, The Giver. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in Doug Wing. Say, Doug, how you doing, buddy?
Tom, how are you? It's great to see you. And this is number 2, right? The second time we've done this together. I'm so happy. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Well, we've both come a long ways with the streaming thing, haven't we? Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember the very first podcast I ever did was Ken Walls' show, Breakthrough Walls. And it's amazing the circle of friends that we have, but Ken has been a great influence, as you mentioned, on both you and I and the Grow Live Academy. And it's really helped me grow as a person. Oh, in fact, he wrote the foreword to the book, The Giver.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that because that's sort of how this whole thing that we do live streaming. And I just like to, say this is a way to, bring good quality people in, to have value, have wisdom, have something to contribute. Mm-hmm. Because we never know who's listening and what you say or an idea that you come up can make a difference in somebody's life. That's my whole mission around this, is just touch people's lives maybe in a different perspective. Nothing's ever been recreated. It's just a different perspective. So,
yeah, I was actually speaking one time when Giant Success came out. I was speaking in front of this big recycling coalition, and this lady came up to me and she said, "I was so touched by what your stories." And she says, "My son was murdered, and can I buy a book?" I immediately handed her a book and said, and she was just in tears. And I said, "You're not buying a book." And I signed it and gave it to her. But she was so touched, and then I was touched. So it was pretty impactful. Yeah.
Before we get into your story and that, I always, because this is G-Force, and I use this in all my programs. So I always like to do this. What are you grateful for today?
Wow, that's a great question. I pray every morning, and I think this morning I'm so grateful just to be alive. I think we take that for granted, for the very air we breathe and for the beauty of the earth. And again, this morning, I'm just so grateful to live in a beautiful country, to live in a free country, to be alive, for sunshine and mountains and just to be alive. It's just wonderful to be here on this earth and to experience, to go through these things we go through in life, the trials, the hard times as well as the good times. But it's when we go through these trials and the hard times that we grow, if we deal with them correctly and help them use them to help us change, and become better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And because that's, as looking at my life, I think I took gratitude on the surface, just like, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm okay. But when you really study gratitude, the spiritual, the depth of it, when I was turned on to a book called uh, Gratitude Works by Robert A. Emmons, it changed everything in my life. Applying gratitude in my daily routine, because I
Hmm.
took things for granted. I didn't even think about me being alive, you know. But
Yeah.
this moment, and this is my frame of mind, is this moment is the most important moment of my life. This,
Yeah.
because how we communicate and how we build relationship, the message we share, it's so important. We can't take it for granted,
Hmm.
and it will carry us forward uh, into the future on how we deal with this moment. No matter what's it, we could have a death in the family, we could have tragedy. We're moving into holiday season where there's a lot of. We're going to talk about one particular item that I brought to your attention. So we're moving into an area where sometimes gratitude is lost. So hopefully today your story will help get people to reframe their thinking around this time that's either joyful or sad for a lot of families. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. This time of year can, is there's a lot of people that go through depression, especially during Thanksgiving and Christmas time, and they say there's, the suicide rates are higher and things like that. So there's a lot of people who are lonely and are, or don't have family, and they're going through a lot, and coming out of COVID, when I know we'll get into this later. But when I, this book really, one of the reasons why it came out was I met with Mark Victor Hansen, had dinner with him, and I told him some stories out of Giant Success. And he said, that night after dinner, he goes, I'd like to sign you to a 3-year publishing contract. And I was like, what are we going to do together? And he said, well, he goes, I love your stories. I know you have a lot of stories about your life and about your father's life and in the business. And he said, I would like to write a series of books with you. And the first one, he named the title that night. He said, and the first one is going to be called The Giver. And it's going to help people coming out of COVID. And he said, people really need to have hope and read these positive books. And he says, I think this is going to be a game changer. And I said, okay, I trust you. Let's do this. So,
Well, I would definitely Mark Victor Hansen. I would definitely, when he speaks, I would pay attention. So.
yeah, it was, in fact, I was really shocked. I was, because if you had told me 5 years ago I would be writing books, I would have been like, you're crazy, So, I mean, I was building ladders, and so it's very interesting how you have these little changes in your life, and you grow. I mean, I've grown as a person. I never thought I'd be doing this, but I've learned a new skill and a new talent, and it's been fun to not only do these podcasts, but then do a little speaking with companies and schools and things. It's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, influencing people's lives. I think that's our calling when we really understand our why and our purpose. You just said something. You said, "Well, I just used to make ladders," but I think there's a metaphor and a story behind the ladder. If we just think about this for a second, that what do ladders do? They just take it to a higher level, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of how
So
life is. You go up, and sometimes you slip a little bit, you go down a rung, and then you have to change, and you climb. You keep climbing. All the way, every step throughout your life. You're exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, so your story about the ladders is a direct picture. I just see that. I'm a creative, so
Yeah.
but we've interviewed the past. Your first book,
Mm.
Giant Success. That's this led to this book, led to your conversation with Mark Vincer um, Hansen, and share a little bit for those that may not know you or your story up to this point. A little bit about your background. We talked about Giant Ladder, but where you grew up, a little about your family. Your dad is the influencer to your writings
Hmm.
and has definitely impacted you as an individual as well. So why don't you just share a little bit about that, and we'll dive a little bit into the book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was born in Germany. We lived there for just a few years, and that's how the Little Giant ladder was founded. Was found was my father was selling life insurance. He was bilingual, German and English. So this company he worked for started an agency in Germany, and my dad saw the original Little Giant, became very good friends with the guy that created that product. We came back to America. My dad gave up his job, which he was making very good money. We had 7 kids, and he went out on the road, selling these ladders door to door and trade shows and state fairs. And I worked for him when I was 10 years old, and I worked for one company my entire career, Little Giant, 47 years, and had an incredible mentor who happened to be my father. And it was a wonderful journey. Learned so much from him. Amazing person, amazing confidence, amazing work ethic, amazing how he treated people, and including our suppliers and distributors. He was just so fair and honest, and he built people. He really built people. Not, he didn't really build ladders. He built people, and the people that worked for him helped him build a great company. And so that's a little bit about me. And then we ended up selling the business. I retired and then got into books. And the way that happened is just real quick is I met with Jeffrey Gitomer, a real good friend of mine who's written 17, 18 books, and he knew the story of the company because we were friends. And he said, "You need to write this book because you're going to help people and you're going to grow." And he said, "It's going to be a bestseller." And I said, "You're crazy." Now, this was during COVID, and it took a while. I'd never done it before, but it took me 18 months. But he was right. He was right on the money. We finished this book. We got it out and became a bestseller on Amazon, and that led into speaking opportunities. And so then, we talked about the next book coming out, and everything just kind of, fell into place. And here I am, and it's kept me really busy. And as I mentioned, I learned new skills and talents, and it's just so fun when people come up to you and I've read your book, it changed my life. And so it's been very rewarding. I've enjoyed it.
Wonderful. That's we never know how our paths will change, but I think that part of the thing is who you circle yourself. Your dad was an influencer, there's no doubt. And then of course being in a company that's very successful puts you in a whole different realm of people in business and those type of things. So Mark Vincent Hansen, you had dinner with him. He says, "You're going to write another book or a series of book. I'm going to put you under contract."
Yeah. And so what makes this book really unique is he goes, we do a lot of fiction books. He goes, "My vision for this book is it's going to be a fiction-based book. Some of the stories can be yours, and we'll change the name of the company, we'll change the name of the people, and then we'll have other stories in there but this book will be fiction." And I was like, wow, I've never done anything like this before. And so as we worked together, we came up with some of my stories, and we came up with, a company called Camp Wild. And there's a guy in there named, that owns the company, John Ward, and he's got sons and daughters, and it's a family business. And it goes through a bunch of different stories, related to really what happens is his kids don't even know this. The owner of the company eventually gets sick and dies, and his son takes over. And his son named Spencer, and he's a real go-getter. He's got a Wharton business degree. He's all about making money. That's what he wants to do, is just make money. He kind of neglects his family a little bit, and his wife and kids. But what he finds out through starting to run this company is that he runs into all these people, including his father's assistants in the company, that they were doing all of these things anonymously, giving and helping people. He had no idea. And so, he's kind of at a crossroads. He wants to make money and be his own guy and grow the company, But what happens throughout this book is that his heart changes, and he eventually figures out that when I help other people, when I build other people, when I help make them happy, then that helps me become, a different person. And as I become a giver and do it anonymously like my father, his whole life changes. His whole outlook on life changes.
So, yeah, so a lot of these are stories that are real, but just been changed to a story, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're protecting the innocence, I guess, what they say.
Yeah,
But,
just some of, like I said, there's several in there that are true stories, but we changed the names, and but the stories are the same. And then there's some that we created, and it's a fiction book, but it was fun doing it. It was really, really fun. And the response that I've got back from people is that, it's been very enjoyable. And I'm hoping that during this Christmas time that we concentrate on giving. This book is going to be great for Christmas. Yeah.
yeah, as we're talking about the book, I love your cover. I tell you what, that in itself, was a magnet to me when I saw that. So, who was the creative force behind that image? That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Mark Victor Hansen himself, but that was created very quickly when we, together we decided, okay, what's it going to look like on the cover? And Mark Victor Hansen, his company Chickens, they've done the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. They have done literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of books, I'm sure. But the cover is amazing, where you have, the hand, and then on the inside of the book, there's that same little. It's a little bit different, but it has
The hand with the heart.
And the heart, and that is really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, but with this book like this, with the light and everything, where that light comes out of the hands and everything, and that's just really incredible. Yeah, I enjoy it. A lot of people have said, man, the color of this and the design has really been incredible. But
It's a
again,
compliment to everybody associated with the book. I just want to acknowledge that, because many times we're thinking about what's in the book, but I tell you my wife wrote a book, and it's how important the cover is as well. So they did a great job. So
yeah, they did wonderful, and I was so happy to work with. I was just delighted to work with a company as well known as Mark Victor Hansen Libraries. I mean, it really means a lot when you can walk in and show people, and it has his name on it and their company. It's pretty impressive. So I'm blessed, super blessed.
yeah. So these stories came from a lot of the influence from your dad's, what he did, and some you saw when you were growing up, I'm sure, but it sounded like a lot of it was never seen until, I'm sure there's probably other stories that will probably manifest themselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's one thing that is neat. The similarities between my life and this book, The Giver, where Spencer Ward in this book finds out, oh my gosh, my dad was so generous. He was such a giver. He was so helpful. He was just this philanthropist that was incredible. Those same things happened in my life. And it started really when my dad passed away at the funeral home. And this book talks about a lot of those same types of things. But we had this little old lady, she had to be in her 80s, walk up to me and my siblings and my mom. And I'm sure my mom had to know about this, but maybe she didn't. But this little lady walks up and she says, "You don't know who I am. I was homeless. I had no place to live, and your father purchased a home for me to live in." It just blows your mind, We're like, what? And so this book has a lot of those same stories as to where, the son and his brother and his sister are just blown away by, they're like, how did we not know about this? And so he did a lot of those things anonymously, and my father was the exact same way. Yeah.
when we think about the principle of giving, and we're giving for the right intention. A lot of times people give with intentionality or something in return, but when you give unconditionally, and that's a hard thing to do as a human being, right? I mean, when we give, I've given before. I'll get you X, but in turn, I would like to have something given back as a, I'll ask you something. So it's sort of how a lot of us were giving with the wrong intention, and to be able to do it from that higher place. I just put it that way, a higher place.
Yeah.
God gives without any conditions, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure. There's a building in Salt Lake that I used to walk by sometimes, and it was there were several people that donated. It's like a opera house or something like this in Salt Lake, a concert hall. And there were several people that donated to make this thing a reality. And I remember it has like 10, 15 names of very influential people on it. And they actually engraved it in stone on this building. And there's one or two on there that says anonymous. And I thought, man, here's really true givers, right? Because these other people, a lot of them were, well-known people, wealthy people who gave back, and they gave, really from their heart. But for me, the two people on there that have anonymous on there, I thought, wow, this is really great. They gave the same amount of money, but yet they didn't want the recognition. They didn't want to have it known who they were. And I thought, wow, that's really the true spirit of giving. And there's a lot of that in this book. And there was a lot of that growing up with my parents. My mom was great too. My dad was just bigger than life. And my mom really didn't want a lot of the credit, and she was out of the spotlight. But I had really good parents who gave back big time. I mean, there's one story where, my dad helped someone. And after I wrote my first book, I didn't realize that this happened, but he said that he had lost everything in this huge fire. All his possessions were burned. And he said the very first person that helped him out was my father. And then and I didn't even know about this, but then he said, what makes this story really, really incredible is that at the time your father didn't have the money to help me. And he went to the bank and borrowed the money to help me. And I was like, wow. So my parents, I think, made the determination their whole life, we're going to be givers. We're going to help people. And even when they didn't have the money, they did it anyway. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Many times people equate giving with a hard asset, something that takes money or whatever. But, I think, in part of our conversation today, especially that the season we're in, is giving's not always money.
Yeah.
It could be giving could be that smile or acknowledgement that people are seeking. So, that's where gratitude comes in, being grateful for where you're at, and share that. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful for the person that bagged my groceries. I will let them know.
Yeah.
Because that's giving. We're giving recognition to another human being. And I think when you talked about your dad starting a business, he recognized people builds a company, right?
Yeah.
It's not the building, it's not the machinery, it's not the hotel and the rooms, it's the people. And your dad had that. Where did he learn that about? Is that come from his faith-based spirit, or did it come from mentors that he had in his life? Where do you think that came from for your dad that is migrated into you as well?
I'm very sure that it came from my grandparents, his parents, because I've heard all the stories. And when I was younger, a teenager, I saw what my grandparents did. My grandma lived right next to a crippled lady, and she would go every night to this crippled lady's house and bathe her and prepare her and help her get in bed. And she would go around, she would, back in the day, my grandma, how people would bake and cinnamon rolls and pies and cakes. My grandma would deliver those everywhere. And my grandpa was such a hard worker. He worked on the railroad, and in his spare time, he farmed 11 acres. I don't know how this guy did this, but he grew corn and potatoes and, I mean, everything, cucumbers, lettuce, tomatoes, everything. And he would go every night after he would, harvest his stuff and get it ready. He would go out to widows throughout the neighborhood, and he would give of his fruits and vegetables, his produce every night. He would go out and he'd come up to our house and give my mom all these vegetables. And so I know that's where my dad got it. But, you mentioned, even just a smile or your time and everything. One thing that people don't know about my dad was he actually made this CD right here. He learned how to yodel when he was in Germany and sing, and he played the piano, the harmonica, and the trumpet. And he made this CD. He said so that my grandkids and my great grandkids would remember me. And what he would do was he was so good at this. He would sing and he would dress up in the German lederhosen and everything.
Sure.
But he would go, now keep in mind, this is a multi-millionaire, a successful guy, but he would go around to restaurants and retirement places, and he would perform. He would have all the equipment, and he would perform for these people. A lot of them had Alzheimer's, and he took the time out of his schedule to sing for them and yodel. And so he was so good. Again, he gave with his money, yes, but he also gave with his time and his talents. And we had talked before, I think, on your show about my dad knowing when people needed him, and he showed up at hospitals, and people were so surprised that he would, visit them and in their time of need. And so he was really good about that. He was always in the right place at the right time. I'm amazed at how he had the ability to know when people needed him. But I think you develop that talent by listening and looking for opportunities to help people.
Wow. I think a lot of what we have life experiences causes us to be who we are, positively or negatively, or we all have those things. But that lineage of seeing it just sort of passes on. You're creating a legacy of the Wings, to one degree or another. I'm sure your brothers, sisters, or whatever have that same instilled some degree or another. But creating that legacy of giving, I think that's probably one of the greatest virtues that we can. That I'm amazed by. I look at my lack of giving, so when I know I can do more.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, usually during the last 2 months of the year, we start to think about who can I do something for, because it's Christmas. Who can I help? What can we do? Can we go sing carols to somebody and things like that, which are great. But why do we have to only do it for 1 or 2 months of the year, right? Why can't we have that same mentality of giving and helping all year long, And so, yeah, I was certainly blessed with wonderful parents and grandparents, and I try to do what I can do to help people. And a lot of times when we get down, when we start helping people and think about others, it really changes your perspective and helps you to go overcome those hard times when you're going through them.
Yeah. It goes to gratitude, going to a deeper place with it and not taking it for granted, and giving. So we're in that season. We come out of the Thanksgiving tradition. What are we thankful for? And sometimes that might be the only time that people really put any real thought into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dr. Robert A. Emmons says, most people take gratitude and thankfulness on a surface level until we really understand it. And then that's how things change. Because this is all spiritual. Giving is a spiritual principle. And it has fruits that we never see, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to see some fruits that your dad planted. He planted that seed of giving, and years later, you're finding out about these stories. That has to be mind blowing. That
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I ever told you the story about the couple that this one was, because I interviewed almost 40 people. It was 39 people I interviewed for the book, and this story it's not in The Giver, it's not in Giant Success, but one of the things I really enjoyed about my dad was not only was he a giver, but he also had like complete integrity. And I don't know if I ever told you this story about the couple that came to him with all this jewelry, and they were going to lose everything they had. They came to my dad's office and wanted him to buy this jewelry. Did I ever tell you that story?
No, I haven't heard this.
Yeah. So if we have time, I can tell it to you really quick, because
sure. Go ahead.
This is going to be one of the stories in my next book, which I think is going to be about integrity, and it'll be a fictional book again. And it may be the Ward family again. We haven't worked that out yet. But so I'm interviewing this guy. My dad loved jewelry. He loved to buy my mom jewelry, and my dad loved nice jewelry, and a little bit of bling, but But I'm interviewing a guy who was a jeweler, who was a really good friend of my parents, and he said, I want to tell you a story. I know you don't know about this, but he goes, it was an incredible story. And I said, I would love to hear it. And he said, your father had this couple come into his office one day, and they had a huge like trunk full of jewelry. This couple was really down on their luck. They were going to lose everything they had, their home, their business. And he says they met an appointment with your dad. They laid this trunk of jewelry and laid it out on his office and said, Mr. Wing, if you'll give us $100,000 for this, this will help us. We need this money. We'll give you all of this jewelry. And he said, your dad looked at the jewelry and told the couple, I think your jewelry is worth a lot more than $100,000. Please let me make a phone call to my friend Curtis Bennett, and let's see what he has to say about your jewelry. So my dad makes a call and said, Curtis, can this couple come up and show you their jewelry? They need someone to help them. They have beautiful jewelry, and will you help them? And Curtis says, absolutely. So they drive an hour to Salt Lake and meet with Curtis Bennett. And Curtis says, Doug, he said, it took me 2 years, but I sold their jewelry for $2.5 million. And he said, I know your dad knew how much that jewelry was worth, and he could have easily written out a check for $100,000, taken that jewelry, justified it in his mind, and said, I helped them. But he said, no, your dad didn't do that because he had integrity. He helped them. And the cool part of the story is at the very end when they got all their money and they were helped out. And this really, it helped them to save, they didn't have to go through bankruptcy and everything. And they were so grateful. When this 2 years was over with, they came back to my dad. And this is my favorite part of the story. And they said, we want to give you, Mr. Wing, a check for $100,000 because you were so honest and you helped us. And he said, I'm not going to accept it. Have a nice day. And it was my pleasure to help you. And I thought, my gosh, I had such an amazing father that very easily could have bought this jewelry, justified it in his mind. And he didn't do that. He helped them. And then at the end, they tried to pay him back. And he said, no, I was just doing it to help you. So incredible story.
Absolutely. That is a great story on the giving and well, how would I have dealt with that? That draws a good question, right?
Yeah, because like I said, in your mind, you could say, okay, I helped them and they, it was a fair price. And, you could have taken that jewelry and kept it, or you could have sold it. But my lesson from this is Hal Wing knew how much that jewelry was worth. And he could have easily
He didn't take advantage of somebody.
Yeah, he didn't take advantage.
Integrity. I mean, that's a.
Yep. So I think we got locked up a little bit here. Froze up a little bit. Can you still hear me, Tom? I'm not sure what happened here, Tom. Hello? I think we lost. I think we lost Mr. Tom Ginn. So let's see if he comes back on. I'm here in the studio alone, so let's see if I'm looking to see if he's trying to call me or anything. We'll just stay on here for a second and see if he's... I think we're still live. It says we're live. Not sure what happened to him, but... I don't know if we're still on or not. If someone's watching, can you send a comment? See, I don't know what happened to Tom. I'm checking my phone, but I don't think he's... Maybe he lost his internet or something. Oh, wow, Bob, it's only me on. I don't know what happened to... I'm not sure what happened to Tom. He just... All of a sudden he froze up and then he just disappeared. Sorry about this, guys. I was hoping he's going to pop right back on. But I'm not sure what I should do. This has never happened before on a podcast. So, holy cow. Let me see if I can text him. I've never had this happen before. He just completely froze up and disappeared. This is pretty wild. I was thinking he'd pop right back on, but maybe he lost his internet service there. He's in Wisconsin, I think. I still haven't heard anything from him. Wow. There's a first for everything, right? Normally it's the guest whose internet goes bonkers. Oh, Bob's asking me a question. Yeah, anybody can ask me any question. Oh, let's see. Hang on a second. The internet. Tom Ginn said, lost my internet. Please send me your phone number. Okay. Okay, let's go back to my greatest lesson I've learned in the last 30 days. We've spent a lot of time in my church assignment, visiting people, every Tuesday night. And the last couple of weeks we've been visiting widows. And I think that one of the biggest things I've learned over the last couple of weeks is how blessed I am. And we visited some members who are really down on their luck and going through a lot of challenges right now, and with money, financial challenges, and also with health challenges and family problems and things like that. So I would say one of the things I've really learned is the last couple of weeks, and even in last month, is how blessed I am and how grateful I am. I mean, I was alone for Thanksgiving, and I had a really good friend that that called me and invited me over to his house. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go to his house. His kids were all gone, but they had 3 of them come back. But I was so blessed. I haven't had a very good Thanksgiving dinner for a long time. My parents have been gone for quite a while. My dad, 10 going on 11 years, and my mom, 6 going on 7. But anyway, I think I've learned that I'm so blessed. And this little old lady that we went to, I was just going to tell you, we went to a little widow in my ward, and I brought her a little box of chocolates, and I gave her my Giver book for a Christmas present. And this lady sees me at church the next week, comes up to me, wraps her arms around me, and she goes, "I loved our visit, Doug. I loved your book, and I love you." And I was like, oh my gosh, I was just in tears. She was 80, she's 87 or something like that. And, I made a difference in the visit. We did that with her that night. And I gave my book to several widows in my church group, and they've all read The Giver, and they just said, we love it. We love it. So anyway, I think just making a difference in people's lives. And so these visits we've been doing to lonely people have been great. Eric, you're wearing your bedazzled pants. Oh, that's great. Anyway, we did a little Christmas party last night, and you're supposed to bring a white elephant. Everybody was supposed to bring a white elephant, and and it was funny because I brought both my books and I signed them and wrapped them. And that was my gift. And there was like 20 people there. Of course, I was a Boston Celtics fan. Larry Legend, holy cow, Larry's awesome. Magic was good too, but I loved Larry Bird. But anyway, we went to this Christmas party last night it's called Empty Nesters in my church. And I wrapped up 2 of my books, and then everybody wrapped up gifts. And you could go, the rule was that when it was your turn, you could either steal somebody else's gift, and then they could choose another gift. And my books got stolen like 3 times. I felt so bad for the guys that wanted them. And then one of the guys at the end grabbed them and got them. And I was like, oh man, but it was very complimentary that they took the books. But okay, Jeffrey Wolf says, are there any other people you've met recently that are impacting your life positively? Actually, these widows that we've been visiting have really helped me because I'm single right now. I'm engaged, but my fiance is in the Philippines. But 2 of these widows that we met with have been their husbands have been gone for years. I mean, like 20, 30 years. And they are so faithful and so positive. And, that really has helped me during this time when I know I'm engaged. I know I'm going to get married, and I'm waiting for this fiance visa. But just the example of these women, these widows, older widows who are in their 80s, almost in their 90s, and they're still faithful and still active and still positive and happy. I think those are the things that have really affected me this time of year as I've gone through some lonely times. Thanksgiving and Christmas, which, we're supposed to be with our families and everything. All right, hang on. Tom is calling me. Hang on. All right, Mr. Ginn, his internet has gone out, but he's restarted his computer. And he said he may or may not be back because now his computer's doing an update. So, and we've been on for 45 minutes, but he just said keep it going for a few more minutes. So are there any other questions that anyone has? Those that are still on, it can be about Giant Success, The Giver, Little Giant, anything, any questions you may have. I'd be glad to answer any question. So he just said stay on and see if he can, and let's see if he can get back on. But if you have any questions for me, I would be glad to answer any of them. I think Jeffrey and Eric and Bob maybe are still on. So, but there's a first for everything. Tom feels so bad that his internet, he said, just died, and his computer is restarting, but he said that now it's doing an update. I'll tell you what, technology's been a challenge for me. I'm not that good at these things, and if you don't believe me, you can just call Ken Walls anytime. He's an interesting guy. Ken, one of my best friends who helps me all the time. Okay. Bob has asked, how do you measure the success of your life? That's a good question. I think really, I don't compare myself to other people. And I think if you do that, it's not going to be good for you. Life will be very frustrating. So I think that you compare yourself to yourself. In other words, you measure your growth as a human being and as a person. And you do that through, affirmations, goals, self-evaluation. And I think that, you do that through change and through improvements. One of the things that I've really had to work on is, I've been successful in business, successful with customers and those types of things, but I haven't been successful with family relations and marriage, to be specific. And I've been married and divorced 3 times. And so it's been something that I've really worked on. And over the last few years, specifically, I've been through therapy and counseling and all those types of things. And I think that, so you need to work on yourself and, and don't compare yourself to other people, and then look at your strengths and your weaknesses and be honest and work on your weaknesses and try to improve each day a little bit. And that's one thing that I really try to do. And then don't be afraid to try new things, like writing books and doing these things. And so I think that's really important. Let me see. Jeffrey said, what's a common misperception people have about giving, its purpose and effect? I think that most of the time, not most of the time, I think a lot of the time people, we talked about this earlier on the show, but I think a lot of people give maybe to be recognized. And I think that the true way to give is to do it anonymously. And that's one thing that my dad was very good at. And I'm sure there's millions and millions of people who are so good at doing this. And that's really the heart of the true giver. And Tom's trying to call me again. I'm going to mute everybody. Hang on. All right. That was Tom, and he said, "Hey, his computer's still trying to reboot and clean up and all that." Um, yeah, I think back to Jeffrey's question, the purpose really going back to the purpose is, all of us have been given life, right, from a creator, from God, and everything we have, our breath, even the very breath we take every day, just being alive, we have been given, and so we're so blessed. And I think that giving keeps us humble and keeps our gratitude where it needs to be, and it helps remind us that the things that we have. This is one of my favorite Hal Wing quotes, and I'll find this so I can be more accurate. But he talks about the things that we have, and I just want to make sure I get it. There's a couple of quotes in here. See if I can find it. Maybe it's not in this part. Let me see if I don't. I don't think I put it in this part, but what one of my favorite quotes from my dad is that he says, "None of the things that we have are going to matter 50 years from now." See if I can find it. I know there's a picture of it in here somewhere. Be patient with me. Oh, yeah, right here. Here it is in the very back of the book. It says, "None of the things we have will be worth a gust of air 100 years from now. It will matter, however, how we treat each other, what we say, how we act, and what we think. Of this I am certain." And so that's one of the things that I want to leave with you at the end of this show, is that the things of the world, the things that we have, the the houses, the cars, all of that stuff they don't matter. And the things that really, really will matter, especially after we leave this earth, is how we treat people, how we act, what we say, what we do, what we think. And have we done any good in the world? Have we helped anyone in need? And so those are the things that really matter. Giving helps us to, remember kind of our own nothingness, and keeps us humble. Anyway, I just want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. I hope you have the opportunity this season to give. And it doesn't just mean your money. You can give of your time, your talents, your abilities. As I mentioned on the show, one of the things I loved about my dad is that he taught himself how to yodel, and he made this CD, Hal Wing, the Happy Wanderer, and he had all these songs he sang and yodeled, and then he would go and perform. I mean, my dad, he was so successful. He would put on German lederhosen, the hat with the big feather, and he would go to senior living places, is what they call them now. And some of the places he would go, people had Alzheimer's. They had no idea who he was or what was going on, but they would sing along and they would clap, and this brought my dad a lot of happiness and brought them happiness too. So anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Try to find someone that you can help, not just this season, but all year long. Smile at people, say hello, open doors for people. Just talk to people. I mean, there's so much going on right now where people don't even talk to each other, where people are, quick to cut each other off in traffic and honk their horns and flip each other off. And there's a lot of that going on, but take the time to be kind and to serve and to help and to give. Anyway, oh, hang on. He's calling again. Hello. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Ginn has just called and said that his internet is out. So I'm thinking up in Wisconsin, maybe a snowplow took something out. His internet is out, and he wanted me to just apologize for that to everyone and say Merry Christmas to y'all. But it's been a pleasure. And he said we are going to do another show because we didn't get to go through and ask everyone everything. Ask me what he wanted to ask for the show. So anyway, I never thought I would be ending his show for him, but thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments and your questions. It's been wonderful. So my invitation to you this year for 2023 is to find ways to serve people. And that can be with your time, your talents, your means. There's lots of ways we can serve other people. We can give back, we can help, we can love. And that's my invitation to you all. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. For Tom Ginn, this is Doug Wing, and thank you for watching. Take care. Go give today. Go help. Thanks. Bye.